My fiancée went on a date the night before our wedding. So I married someone else. I always thought the night before my wedding would be one of the happiest moments of my life. A quiet, meaningful evening, maybe a toast with my closest friends. A final moment to reflect before stepping into forever. Instead, I found myself staring at my phone, my hands frozen over the screen as I read a text that shattered everything. Bro, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but she's on a date with another guy. I blinked, trying to process the words. The message was from Jake, my best friend since college. We had been through everything together. If he was telling me this, it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a misunderstanding. A second later, another message came through. This time, a photo. There she was, my fiancée, sitting at a candlelit table in an upscale restaurant, a glass of champagne in her hand, her face glowing under the dim light. Across from her, a man in a navy blue suit leaned in close, laughing at something she had said. I felt a strange attachment settle over me. Not anger, not even heartbreak, just clarity. This was real. She was out on a date the night before our wedding. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, my mind blank. Then, almost instinctively, I dialed her number. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey, babe," she said cheerfully. "What's up?" I took a slow breath. "Where are you?" There was a brief pause, then, perfectly casual, she said, "Oh, just having dinner with the girls. We decided to do a little last-minute celebration. You know, pre-wedding fun." I clenched my jaw. "Funny," I said, my voice calm, "because I just got a picture of you on a date with some guy in a suit." Silence, then a nervous laugh. "Ryan, come on. That's ridiculous." I didn't say anything. I just let the silence stretch between us. She cleared her throat. "Look, I don't know what someone told you, but you're overthinking this. It's not what you think." I exhaled slowly. "I don't need an explanation." Another pause, this time longer. "What do you mean?" I leaned against the counter, staring at the engagement ring sitting on the kitchen table. The same ring I had spent months saving up for. The same ring I had planned to put on her finger tomorrow, in front of our friends and family. "There won't be a wedding tomorrow," I said. Her voice instantly changed. "Ryan, wait. Don't do anything stupid. Can we just—" I hung up. The phone rang again. Then again. And again. I ignored every call, every desperate text. Instead, I stood up, walked over to my liquor cabinet, and poured myself a drink. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would look like anymore. But one thing was certain, I wasn't marrying her. The phone kept vibrating on the counter, like a lifeline she refused to let go of. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to hear her excuses, her manipulations, or whatever half-hearted attempt she had at convincing me that what I saw with my own eyes wasn't real. What I saw wasn't a lie. It was the truth. I had the proof in my hands. A picture was worth 1,000 words, and that picture told me everything I needed to know. Instead of answering her calls, I turned off my phone and sat in the quiet of my apartment, letting the reality of the situation sink in. Less than 24 hours ago, I had been excited about my wedding, ready to commit to a lifetime with someone I thought I knew. Now, everything had changed in an instant. I had imagined waking up tomorrow filled with nervous anticipation, surrounded by friends and family, putting on my tux, and walking down the aisle toward the person I had chosen to spend my life with. But now, the only thing I felt was relief. It hit me in waves. How easily she had lied to me. How effortlessly she had gone out with another man the night before our wedding, as if she wasn't about to make the biggest commitment of her life. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even seem guilty when I confronted her. It was all a game to her. And for the first time, I realized something important. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was free. For the first time in months, maybe even longer, I felt clarity. I had narrowly avoided walking straight into a disaster I had been too blind to see. The red flags had been there all along, but love, or what I thought was love, had made me ignore them. The growing distance between us, the way she seemed more excited about planning the wedding than the actual marriage, the little lies I had brushed off because I didn't want to seem insecure. But now I could see everything clearly. I grabbed my keys and walked out of the apartment, needing to get out to do something, anything, other than sit in the suffocating silence. The streets were quieter than usual, the city buzzing softly in the background as I drove without a destination. I wasn't sure where I was going, but my instincts took over. Before I knew it, I was outside my best friend Jake's house. He answered within seconds, his face tense like he had been waiting for my call. "Man, I was hoping you'd come by," he said, stepping aside so I could walk in. "How are you holding up?" I let out a breath and shook my head. "I'm not even sure." He nodded, like he understood exactly what I meant. "I swear, I wasn't sure if I should send you that picture," he admitted. "I didn't want to ruin your night, but I also couldn't let you go through with it without knowing the truth." "I'm glad you did," I said without hesitation. I would have married her. I would have walked down that aisle thinking I was the luckiest guy in the world, and she would have been standing there knowing she had already betrayed me. Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. "It makes me sick, man. She had the nerve to cheat on you the night before your wedding. She never really cared in the first place." I said, simply. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of everything settling between us. Then, out of nowhere, Jake grinned. "So what now? Are you going to make a dramatic announcement at the wedding venue? Expose her in front of everyone?" The idea was tempting, I won't lie. A small part of me wanted to see the look on her face when she realized that everyone knew exactly who she was. But the truth was, I didn't need revenge, I didn't need some public spectacle to prove a point. Walking away was enough. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I'm not wasting another second on her." Jake smirked. "Good, because I was going to suggest something way better." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What's that?" "Well, you already paid for the venue, the food, and the drinks. Might as well throw a party." I blinked at him. "You want me to turn my own wedding into a party?" "Hell yeah," he said, laughing. "Why let it all go to waste? You dodged a bullet. Man, you should be celebrating." The idea was crazy, insane even, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized he was right. Why should I spend tomorrow locked away, feeling sorry for myself, when I could be surrounded by the people who actually cared about me? A slow smile spread across my face. Let's do it. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of unread messages. Some were from mutual friends who still assumed today was my wedding day. Others were from people who had already heard the news, asking if it was true. But most of them, they were from her. I didn't bother opening them. I already knew exactly what they would say. First, there would be denial, excuses about how I had misunderstood the situation. Then, there would be guilt-tripping, claims that I was overreacting, that she had made a mistake. And finally, if none of that worked, there would be anger, furious messages about how I had the audacity to walk away before she had the chance to manipulate her way out of it. I wasn't interested in playing her game. Instead of dealing with the mess she had created, I focused on something else. The party. Jake had already taken care of spreading the word, letting our friends and family know that while the wedding was off, the celebration was still on. At first, people were confused. Some were hesitant, unsure if it was appropriate to show up. But the more they thought about it, the more they realized I was right. Why waste a night? By the time I arrived at the venue, everything was set up exactly as planned. The tables, the decorations, the lights. It looked just like a wedding reception, only without a bride. The catering team was there. The drinks were already being poured. The music was playing. And honestly, it didn't bother me at all. Jake was the first to greet me, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Dude, you actually showed up. Thought you might back out at the last second." I smirked. "And miss my own party? Not a chance." He grinned. "That's the spirit. By the way, just a heads up, some people are probably going to ask questions." I nodded. I wasn't naive. Not everyone was here to celebrate. Some had come out of obligation, unsure how to act. They were waiting to see how I was handling it before deciding whose side to take. But I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was that I was standing here, surrounded by people who actually mattered, enjoying a night that could have been the biggest mistake of my life. And then, as I made my way through the crowd, greeting people, shaking hands, laughing at jokes. I saw her. Not my ex. Someone else. Olivia. We had known each other for years. She had always been a close friend, someone I got along with effortlessly. But for some reason, tonight felt different. Maybe it was the way she smiled when she saw me. Maybe it was the way she tilted her head, studying me like she was trying to figure out what was going on inside my head. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the simple fact that she was here when so many others had bailed the second they realized there wasn't going to be a wedding. Olivia walked over, holding a drink in her hand. "So," she said, raising an eyebrow, "you're really doing this?" I chuckled. "You sound surprised." "I am." She took a sip of her drink. Most people would be drowning in self-pity right now, hiding away, trying to figure out what went wrong. I shrugged. "Guess I'm not most people." Her lips curved into a small smile. "No, you're not." We stood there for a moment, the music playing softly in the background, laughter and conversation surrounding us. Then she leaned in slightly. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think you made the right call." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time all night, I realized something. I wasn't just moving on. I was finally free. The party was in full swing, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. No pressure, no stress, no obligations. Just me, surrounded by people who actually cared. The music was loud, drinks were flowing, and everywhere I looked, people were talking, laughing, enjoying themselves. And the best part? No one was asking about her. Of course, I knew that wouldn't last forever. As I made my way through the crowd, a few people stopped me with hesitant looks, their curiosity barely hidden behind polite smiles. "Man, I just have to ask, what happened?" one of my cousins finally said. I took a sip of my drink and shrugged. She made her choice. I made mine. That was all I was willing to say. I wasn't about to turn this night into a pity party. Most people accepted my answer, nodded, and moved on. But there were a few who weren't satisfied. One of her bridesmaids, someone I had never really liked, approached me with a disapproving frown. "You didn't even give her a chance to explain," she said, crossing her arms like she was trying to scold me. I let out a short laugh. "Explain what?" "That she was on a date with another guy the night before our wedding?" She flinched, clearly not expecting me to be so blunt. "People make mistakes." She tried again. I met her gaze evenly. "Cheating isn't a mistake. It's a choice." She had nothing to say to that. After a few seconds of awkward silence, she turned on her heel and walked away. I wasn't interested in hearing excuses. Not from her, not from anyone. As the night went on, I started to relax even more. I danced. I drank. I laughed. And somewhere along the way, I found myself spending more and more time with Olivia. It wasn't intentional, at least not at first, but every time I turned around, she was there, smirking at one of my sarcastic remarks, rolling her eyes when Jake made a bad joke, nudging me playfully when I said something ridiculous. And the more I talked to her, the more I realized something. She had always been there, not in a way I had noticed before, not in a way that had made me question anything. But now it was different. Now, I was actually seeing her for the first time. At some point, we ended up outside on a balcony, away from the crowd. The cool night air was a sharp contrast to the warmth of the party inside. She studied me for a moment before tilting her head. "You seem different." I leaned against the railing, letting out a slow breath. "Yeah," I said, "I think I am. I feel different." Olivia nodded, taking a sip of her drink. "You know, if this had happened to someone else, they'd probably be curled up in bed, miserable." She tilted her head, studying me. "But you? You turned your own wedding into a party. That takes guts." I chuckled. "Or maybe I'm just reckless." She grinned. "No, you're not. You're just finally doing what makes you happy." Her words settled deep inside me. For years, I had been the guy who played by the rules. The guy who always did the right thing, even when it wasn't what I wanted. I had spent months planning a wedding for someone who didn't even respect me enough to be faithful. And yet, I had convinced myself it was what I wanted. But standing there, Looking at Olivia, I realized something. I had been wrong. I had been settling. I had been forcing something that was never meant to last. And now, I wasn't settling anymore. You know, Olivia said after a moment, "Everyone's wondering what you're going to do next." I smirked. "Let them wonder." She laughed, shaking her head. "That's a dangerous answer." "Maybe," I said, turning to face her fully. "Or maybe it's the first honest answer I've ever given." She held my gaze, something unspoken passing between us. Then, with a small smile, she raised her glass. "To new beginnings." I clinked my glass against hers. "To finally waking up." And as I took that sip, I realized this was only the beginning. The night stretched on, but I barely noticed the time. The energy of the party never faded, and I found myself reconnected with people I hadn't truly talked to in years. Old friends, family, even coworkers who had come out of curiosity, but stayed just to see how everything would unfold. Every time someone asked how I was doing, my answer was the same. I was good, better than good, and the best part? I actually meant it. As the drinks flowed and the music played, I caught glimpses of people having the time of their lives, dancing, celebrating, toasting to the unexpected. It was ironic, really. What was supposed to be the biggest disaster of my life had turned into one of the best nights I'd ever had. Instead of standing at an altar, looking into the eyes of a woman who had already betrayed me, I was here, laughing, feeling lighter than I had in years. But I wasn't the only one noticing the shift. At some point, Jake pulled me aside, a knowing smirk on his face. "Dude," he said, nudging me, "have you noticed how much time you've been spending with Olivia tonight?" I rolled my eyes. "It's not like that." He raised an eyebrow. "No? Then tell me why she's looking at you like you're the best thing to ever happen to her." I followed his gaze and saw Olivia across the room, deep in conversation with one of our mutual friends. But then, as if she could feel me watching, she glanced up and caught my eye, and she smiled. Not just a polite smile, not just a friendly one, something deeper. Jake let out a low whistle. "Man, if I didn't know any better, I'd say this whole thing worked out better than you expected." I shook my head, chuckling. "It's not that simple." "Nothing ever is," he admitted. "But sometimes the best things happen when you stop forcing the wrong ones." That stuck with me. Maybe he was right. Maybe this wasn't the ending I had planned. Maybe it was something better. I had spent so much time convincing myself that my relationship was meant to last, that I was building something real. But in the end, it had all been an illusion, something I had been too blind to see. And now that I was finally looking in the right direction, I realized just how much I had been missing. The party started winding down around midnight. One by one, people made their way home, some shaking my hand, some clapping me on the back, others simply offering a knowing look that said more than words ever could. And then, finally, it was just me and Olivia, standing near the empty dance floor, the music still playing softly in the background. "You survived," she teased, her eyes sparkling. I smirked. Was there ever any doubt? She tilted her head, studying me for a moment, maybe a little. "But I have to admit, you handled this better than I expected." I let out a small laugh. "Trust me, I didn't expect any of this." She hesitated, then took a step closer. "So, what now?" I thought about that for a moment. For the first time in years, I didn't have a plan. There was no wedding, no honeymoon, no carefully mapped out future with someone who had never truly been mine. And yet, for some reason, that didn't scare me. It felt good. It felt right. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I think I'm okay with that." She smiled. And this time, there was something different in her expression. Something warm. Something hopeful. "Well," she said softly, "wherever you're going next, I think you'll be just fine." And as I looked at her, really looked at her, I realized something. Maybe this night wasn't an ending after all. Maybe it was the beginning of something better. Something real. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to find out what that might be.